Hi, I'm Megan McLaughlin. I've been practicing multiple styles of meditation for over 20 years now. I've taught yoga nidra, meditation focused birth classes, and yoga for 15 of those years. I'm a certified IRES meditation instructor, hold multiple yoga and birth certifications, and have a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry. I'm currently pursuing a Master of Science in Psychoactive Pharmaceutical Investigation at University of Wisconsin-Madison School of Pharmacy. Think psychedelic science meets humanities. My story, as it relates to this talk, begins with seeking. Some of my earliest memories are of contemplating consciousness, the brain, and the mystery of what could possibly be at the ends of the universe. Yes, some early life existential dread was woven into that. As a teenager and young adult, I was drawn to psychedelics not for healing, but for exploration. They gave me access to something bigger than myself, a break from ordinary reality and myself. In my mid 20s, I discovered meditation and yoga, and I leaned deeply into these practices to meet that same desire for insight and transcendence. I felt like I had come home to myself after traveling for so many years. When I became pregnant, I imagined birth would be the peak of my spiritual journey. Wouldn't I just become one with God and the cosmos while giving birth? I thought, yes, of course. What I found was something very different. It was healing through intensity. It wasn't the mystical vision I expected, it was raw, embodied, grounding, and it changed me and it changed my brain. In my first year of parenthood, I set aside my biochem degree and I began teaching childbirth education, yoga, and meditation. About 7 years later, I took a training with a woman named Wapio, a traditional midwife and educator, who said something that shifted everything. She explained that in undisturbed labor, the brain moves from beta to slower alpha, theta, and even delta waves, just like in deep meditation and dream states. And I wondered, could DMT be involved? Could we study this ethically? That was the moment I understood. Meditation, psychedelics, and birth aren't separate. They're all threshold experiences. They ask us to surrender, to feel, to let go, and to return changed. Throughout this talk, I'll use meditation as an umbrella term for mindfulness, guided practices like yoga nidra, focused attention, Buddhist zazen, really any tradition that brings us into a state of being. And I hope that today you don't just leave with information. I hope you leave with something personal, an experience inside yourself, something to take with you. Let's begin. Years ago, when I was newly pregnant and imagining birthing a human being, I had fears about pain, control, and the unknown. I started out going along the typical path, seeing a doctor, asking questions. And instead of feeling supported, I felt this feeling of no in every bone of my body. I didn't feel aligned with the Western model of care where I felt I was expected to hand the process over to a system, to trust blindly despite my own instincts and knowing. I wanted ownership. To meet that need and my fears, I committed to facing them from the inside out. Instead of handing the process over to a system, I went inward. I deepened my meditation practice, studied physiology of birth, learned emergency childbirth just in case, and I made a conscious decision to meet intensity with presence. That practice became my anchor, and it worked. I was living my practice, and I went into labor from a place of inner agency rather than fear. Birth, like psychedelics, is a threshold experience. You can't bypass it, but you can show up for it fully resourced. In my many years of teaching birth classes, I often said, the only way out is through it. This mantra has guided me through labor, trauma, grief, and it can be a powerful guide in psychedelics. 6 months ago, I went to a New Year's event at my local Zen center. I was seeking more peace in my life and thought, what better place to look? I was met with a silence that felt exactly like the coming home feeling I'd had 20 years prior when I started meditation. No guidance, no protocol, just sitting in silence for an hour with a nature walk in the middle. I wondered what these other 20 people were doing in their minds to be so peaceful. No instruction, no guidance on where to begin, just peace and being. I knew that night I was right where I belonged. And eventually my curiosity got the better of me, and I was open to learning what was the deal with Zen. My teacher, Koshin, explains the practice in terms of self versus no self. No self is that break from thinking, a decrease in the default mode network, which we'll get to later. It's a pure sense of being, where we drop into the moment and time expands in all directions. So there are no thoughts of the past, no future imaginings. There's just spaciousness and presence. What even is time in a space of pure awareness? Then snap, we're back, wondering about why did we say that? What's for dinner? When can we get that strong Zen Center coffee? You get it? Can a meditation practice, whether it's guided or not, help us build resilience for a psychedelic experience as it did in my childbirth experiences? Absolutely. It can help others not only prepare for transformation, but to be in the thick of it and to integrate the experiences after. This very much applies to psychedelics. Even if you're in a state of being for 1 second, you're no longer doing. Let's try that together briefly. You can close your eyes or soften your gaze. Take a deep breath. Start to notice what's supporting you, maybe a chair, maybe the ground, and feeling into those places where you're making contact with what's underneath you. Letting yourself soften just a little bit more into that support. Opening your senses. See if you can notice the space around you, maybe the air on your skin. Maybe there's taste or smell that you can detect. Colors or patterns on the eyelids. Opening the senses so that you can feel and be present with all that you can take in with what's around you. Starting to notice the way that your body is breathing you, nothing to change, just feeling into that rhythm, that slight shift and movement of the breath. Now observe as you come back into self. No judgment, just noticing. You can slowly even start to open the eyes, keeping the gaze soft and just noticing if you can feel how your awareness shifted even in that minute. Even if there is just a tiny bit of stillness that you felt, that's enough. You stepped out of doing and into being. So, what's happening in the brain when we do that? And how is it similar or different from what happens in a psychedelic state? Let's look at the science. At first glance, meditation and psychedelics might seem like opposites. One is slow, quiet, inward, and the other fast, expansive, and sometimes chaotic. But beneath the surface, they affect many of the same brain systems. Imagine your brain like a busy city. One key neighborhood is the default mode network, DMN, the part of the brain responsible for self-referential thinking, mental chatter, past and future planning. This is self. Both meditation and psychedelics quiet this area, as Robin Carhart Harris has shown, as well as many others referenced in this talk. When the DMN slows down, we can experience a softening of ego or even a sense of no self. That feeling of timeless presence, of oneness or unity, this is where it comes from. They also increase communication between regions of the brain that don't usually talk, supporting neuroplasticity or the creation of new pathways. Think new roads being built in that city. Both meditation and psychedelics enhance emotional regulation, affecting regions like the amygdala, and help loosen rigid thought patterns, in case anyone has any of those. They can interrupt anxiety loops, shift our perspective, and increase feelings of connection and insight. This figure shows how psilocybin reduced activity in the brain's DMN across 3 neuroimaging studies. In each case, participants who received psilocybin, which is the blue bars, reported significantly more mind wandering than those given a placebo, the gray bars, reflecting a freer, less constrained style of thinking. These shifts in brain activity, seen through changes in blood flow, oxygen use, and brainwave patterns, illustrate how psychedelics quiet the thinking mind and expand conscious awareness. Meditation and psychedelics don't just complement each other, they create synergy. Meditation before a journey builds nervous system regulation and inner resilience. During, it helps you stay grounded and observe without fear. And after, it supports integration, turning insight into lasting growth. This practice helps people trust their own presence. From that place of being, you can choose what fits you best, how, when, and if to engage in psychedelics. Whether preparing for childbirth or a psychedelic experience, meditation offers a deeply personalized path to healing. It's not just preparation, it's self-trust in action. One opens the door, the other helps you walk through it. All of this is exciting, but it's not available to everyone. The reality is we need to shift from the awe of altered states to the limitations of real world access. Psychedelic healing today is often clinical, facilitator-led, or tied to expensive retreats. These models can be so valuable, but they're not accessible or aligned for all. More than that, they reinforce the idea that healing is something given to us, not something we cultivate from within. When the only valid paths are gated by cost, credentials, or access to studies, we risk excluding the very people who might benefit most, those harmed by systems, or those whose values don't fit the clinical mold. What people need isn't just access, it's agency. Meditation trains what I call inner infrastructure, the held capacity to be with discomfort, soften control, and stay in presence. And it gives us 2 crucial capacities: inner agency, which is the ability to act from within, even during altered states. For example, in a psychedelic journey, instead of panicking when a wave of emotion arises, you take a deep breath, anchor into your body, and let it move through you. You don't need someone to fix it. You just met it yourself. And inner authority, which is the trust to believe in what we feel and know, even if no one validates it. An example is you receive a personal insight and it changes how you see yourself. Even if no one else understands it, you trust that it matters because you felt it. These qualities are vital for those who've been left out of research or mistreated by systems. Neurodivergent folks, LGBTQ plus communities, women, people of color, indigenous people, veterans. When clinical models don't feel safe, inner tools become sacred. The physiological changes during undisturbed labor strongly resemble psychedelic and meditative states. Research measures how brainwaves slow down as labor progresses from active beta to slower alpha, theta, even delta waves, mirroring what we see in deep meditation and sleep. And as you can see here on this screen. At the peak of labor, the birthing person enters a sort of trance. Many describe it as timeless, wordless, and altered. Researchers like Orly Dahan have proposed that this is the neuroadaptive state, what she calls birthing consciousness, linked to transient hypofrontality or a quieting of the thinking mind. This allows for more instinctual, embodied, and intuitive responses to emerge, just like we see in meditation or psychedelics. Endogenous oxytocin and endorphins surge during birth, shifting perception and enhancing feelings of surrender and flow. A study in midwifery even describes labor as a potential flow state, marked by deep immersion, loss of time, and heightened focus, just like a psychedelic journey. The science shows us what so many people already intuitively know. Birth is not a medical event, it's an altered state. And it can be a doorway if we let it. Say you want a healing psychedelic experience. To prepare, you begin practicing mindfulness or breath work, maybe through a free app, a book, YouTube, or a local community class. These tools are already here, often at no cost, no matter what your zip code or your state laws are. Over time, you drop into being, even for a moment. You build resilience, you build trust. From there, you choose your path on your own terms. Meditation teaches us to stay, to be curious, to listen. So when your experience begins, you're not scrambling for a fix. You're meeting it with something you've already practiced. This isn't about luxury. It's about self-trust. Living the practice through psychedelics, birth, grief, or growth. For those excluded or harmed by traditional systems, healing doesn't have to begin with a clinic. It can begin with a breath, with presence, with reclaiming your right to feel and your power to choose. Meditation isn't a fix, it's a compass, a way home to yourself. This is spiritual sovereignty in action. We need more research on meditation, not just for wellness, but as core preparation and integration for psychedelics. And we need harm reduction education that includes inner resourcing, not just risk avoidance. Many current studies only include experienced meditators. We need studies on people just starting out from diverse demographics and lived experiences. Women, for example, have been historically excluded from medical research. We need to study how things like hormonal cycles impact psychedelic experiences. That gap matters. Future research must include those who've been left out: BIPOC, LGBTQ+, and neurodivergent people, women, veterans, parents, spiritual skeptics, anyone who doesn't feel reflected in clinical spaces. This isn't just a shift in practice. It's a shift in who we center and how humans create healing from within. Before I close, I want to take this time to honor how incredibly difficult and uncomfortable life-changing experiences are in ordinary reality. Deep grief, heartbreak, panic attacks, living with PTSD, depression, pain, and facing death. As humans, we struggle with the emotions of these experiences for long durations and sometimes our whole lives. The bravery of choosing a psychedelic experience for healing, knowing it can bring these emotions back up, is immense. People deserve respect, autonomy, and agency over their state. Meditation offers that. It offered it to me. And I hope in some way it offers something to you too. Let's take a breath together. And with that, thank you. I want to thank the PsychedelX team, my talk coach, Kira, and the many mentors that have guided me in meditation, birth, and psychedelic studies. This journey wouldn't be possible without my incredible daughters, who continue to inspire, ground, and motivate me in all that I do. And thank you all for listening. If anyone is interested in continuing this research, please reach out through email or LinkedIn. I would love to talk.